Hello and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jameson Rabbit, and it is my honor this week to introduce a man who has already announced his candidacy for president in 2020. His name is Mike Roth.
I'm making up my new party, too.
Oh, yeah?
It's going to be called the New Party.
The New Party?
Doesn't that sound refreshing?
Kind of like New Coke. I hope it's as successful.
Well, if it's not, I'll just spin into the classic party later.
I like it. I like it. I cannot wait for your platform that you will be out on the stump with. This week we have a few movies on the marquee, so let's get right into it. The first film that we have this week is a movie called Truth, from director James Vanderbilt. It stars Cate Blanchett as a lady named Mary Mapes, and it stars Robert Redford as esteemed broadcaster Dan Rather.
Wow.
And it is basically Mary Mapes is investigating George W. Bush's service record during Vietnam, specifically during his time with the Texas Air National Guard. She is working for CBS. She's an investigator. She puts together a team led by Dennis Quaid and Elizabeth Moss and Topher Grace. They're her investigative team, basically. This is before the 2004 election. And they are trying to determine whether George W. Bush had some improprieties during his service record and such, and lied about things. And there's a big investigation. They get these papers that are supposedly the big thing to crack the case, but time is running out on them to get this on air. They're going to put it on 60 Minutes, and as things are breaking in the case, they don't have time to verify everything. They have a deep throat type of informant who says these are all legit. These are what you need. This is the smoking gun for what you need. And so, with Dan Rather's blessing, they put it on air on 60 Minutes, claiming that George W. Bush didn't do this, didn't do that. And then it starts to come out that maybe all those papers weren't necessarily legit. And it ultimately brought down Dan Rather, brought down Mary Mapes, and really put an end to the career for Dan Rather on CBS News.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because Cate Blanchett kills this movie. I mean, it is the Mary Mapes story. It's supposed to be the Dan Rather story because he's the name you know, but it is very much the Mary Mapes story. And Cate Blanchett is amazing. As you feel the stress and the tension build as she's doing this investigation and going through this research, and there's outside entities that don't want her to do this. And there's all this stuff going on, and then as it unravels, as a house of cards falls on her, she's dealing with that, trying to keep it going. And she was great. My one big problem is Robert Redford as Dan Rather was not believable in the least.
No, I can't picture Robert Redford as Dan Rather.
You know, the thing is Dan Rather is one of the more recognizable faces. I mean, growing up, whether you watch CBS News or not, you know who Dan Rather was. His face was around for 30 years on television.
I'd say second to Walter Cronkite.
I mean, he's right there, right? And then Robert Redford is one of the most recognizable faces in the history of Hollywood.
Yeah.
He's Robert Redford. He's the sunshine, you know, and so I just kept seeing him, and he didn't try to put on a Dan Rather wig. I'm going to have my strawberry blonde hair. I'm just call me Dan. I'll say what. And so that was kind of jarring. Like that didn't jibe for me. The other thing was Topher Grace stood out in this movie. He's one of the three investigative. He's on the team, and he's like Dennis Quaid's partner on this investigative team, and he stood out. And I'm fully convinced now that Topher Grace can't act. I'm fully convinced that he's just a terrible actor.
Yeah.
Because he played the same character that he's played in every single thing I've seen him in.
That's his shtick.
It is his shtick, but he's supposed to be playing an investigative reporter for CBS News, and he's just crazy Topher Grace. And I'm just convinced, like, you're a terrible actor because you're in a you're standing there next to Dennis Quaid and Robert Redford and Cate Blanchett, and it is one of you is standing out like a sore thumb as not being an actor.
See, I haven't seen this movie, but I know Robert Redford and I know Dan Rather. Is Robert Redford playing Robert Redford? Robert Redford has emotion. He has that sly smile. He's got.
See, he was more a secondary character in this story. Like, he was in it quite a bit, and he was trying, I think, to give you a Dan Rather, but there just wasn't much there. You know, there wasn't much to latch onto with Dan Rather. And so if you don't have the physicality, it just kind of slipped by, and it just felt like, there's Robert Redford, and every once in a while he would have a bit of a southern drawl like Dan Rather, but a little Texas drawl, but not much. And so, yeah, it was okay. It was interesting, though, watching as the reporters become the big story. As a reporter, you don't want to be in the story. It's like being an NFL referee.
Yeah.
You don't want people to know your name. You're just in the background. And so it's interesting watching as they present the story that's supposed to be the biggest story of their lifetimes. Oh, this is going to win us awards. And all of a sudden, they're the headlines. These guys, you screwed up a story.
Yeah.
You're going down.
No, I remember this time. It almost seems not too long ago,
Yeah.
but I guess it has been some time. It was right before Bush's second
against
run.
Kerry.
And, that destroyed Dan Rather because you had a really intense political atmosphere of which media is going to take down which candidate. And
And unfortunately, he put his name to it, and he fought tooth and nail, believed in his story, and when it came out that it wasn't all necessarily true, he took the bullet along with a lot of people behind the scenes.
I personally think if it happened not during election season, it would have been an entirely different story.
Right.
But that's my
but
that's
ultimately,
my opinion.
he's survived. I mean, he's gone on to do plenty of other things.
Yeah, he did. He anchored for a cable station that was doing like the first channels to do HD, and he did a really good job.
Yeah.
But as a serious anchorman, he never could really recover. He was always dubbed the liberal media after that.
So ultimately, I guess I gave it 3 stars. Cate Blanchett, like I said, was just incredible, and she always is. And I was just enthralled watching her, and I really enjoyed Dennis Quaid's character. I love watching Dennis Quaid act. But the story was great. It's just a couple of those things that just pulled it back for me. So 3 stars for Truth. That's my score, sir. What do you have on the marquee this week?
Well, one of the movies I saw was Burnt.
No, you didn't. You saw Scout's Guide.
Oh, yeah, I saw Scout's Guide. I saw Scout's Guide also. But what we have here is your basic raunchy comedy. We got a zombie apocalypse, which has been pretty popular for
I've heard of this, yes.
For the past decade, the zombie apocalypse has been the monster to be. We have 3 scouts. 2 of them are looking to get out. They're getting old. They're getting interested in girls. They want to party, be popular. And 1 is still loving the scouts. He can't see us breaking this thing up. So they have 1 more night. Well, kind of. The guy who still wants to be in Scouts believes it's going to be forever. The other 2 decide to ditch him to go to another party, and boom, find themselves in the middle of a zombie apocalypse.
Oh, man.
Crazy.
For reals?
Luckily, you got the Scouts on board because who's better to go up against the zombie apocalypse than a couple of good old American Boy Scouts?
They're not even at least Eagle Scouts?
No.
Oh, come on.
No. But it's a very blue humor. I made the mistake of taking my 15-year-old daughter for her birthday to this, and through most of the movie, I was hands over my eyes going, what a terrible,
Not over her
father.
eyes, but over your eyes.
Well, I turn over, and she's doing the polite
You
thing.
can look at it. I'm not going to.
There's gratuitous nudity, and not just Friday the 13th kind where it's a flash here or a scene here. It's long, painfully awkward scenes.
Well, did they enlist the help of a stripper in that?
Yeah, stripper is actually probably the more lighthearted, less sexual thing.
Right,
I would go into this more on how long and how uncomfortable some of these scenes were to see with my daughter, but we are all ages show, so there's no way I could explain this and not
blew it up.
Not totally have our show bleep.
Yeah. Looking for those.
It does have some humorous parts that made me chuckle, and who hates a zombie apocalypse movie? They're all pretty.
Not I.
They're pretty darn good.
Even the bad ones are enjoyable.
The story writes itself. I think the highlight of the movie is the makeup artist. Actually, I'll say his name. His name's Brian Kenny. Fantastic job. I know this just sounds pretty lame, but the detail of the gore in this movie is phenomenal. I have never seen anything better. When you cut into, you could see layers, you could see organs. You could really tell this person was at the height of his craft. And it will never happen, but this guy really should win an award for makeup because this guy was amazing.
Let me hear on a day next year Academy Award-winning Scout's Guide to the Apocalypse.
It would be under makeup
man.
and special effects, but it's all practical effects. It's not like the other zombie movies where you could tell they had a CGI machine just cranking the blood squirts. This is real people with real talent actually making props for a movie that is very B.
So ultimately, what did you give Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse?
I gave it a very conflicted 2.5.
Okay.
It was interesting. I liked it. I think people who like crass movies and like zombies, they're going to put this at the height of their favorite movies of the year. But I think the majority of the people will be like, that genitalia scene just lasted way too long, and I was a little uncomfortable with
I had to
it.
confront some feelings.
And some of the writing for these jokes felt very much like a 14-year-old that just learned how to swear too. I mean, it was.
Those are the best.
but overall, I think some people will love it. Others will hate it. I don't think there will be too many people in between.
So you split the difference.
Yep.
Very good, very good. The next movie we have on the marquee this week is a movie called Our Brand is Crisis. From director David Gordon Green. It is the newest movie starring Academy Award winner Sandra Bullock. She plays Jane, a.k.a. Calamity Jane. And Jane is a hotshot campaign strategist who at one point burned hot. And she kind of faded out. And she is brought on board. She has kind of gone into retirement after she flamed out. And she's brought on board by Anthony Mackie, who calls her up and says, look, we need your help. We got a guy down here, and we're trying to influence an election and down in Bolivia. And we got this candidate who's not so much, and we think you could help us get him in office. And so she is pulled out of retirement, gone down there, and she's going to change things. And in the process, she is met with her former nemesis, Pat Candy, played by Billy Bob Thornton, who is another campaign strategist who she's gone up against multiple times in the past and has always been bested by him. And it is basically her trying to find ways to, as they say, how to build a narrative to persuade the public. That was a quote that I had to write down because, like, oh, that's interesting. And it is basically, inside baseball, showing how you get a candidate that the people don't originally like, how you make the people like him, how you build issues that maybe aren't even there, and make it a thing where you go, no, this is what we're going on now, and this is what we're going to make the people believe. And it was kind of interesting seeing all that. And I don't know, what did you think of this?
I thought it had a really interesting message. I saw the movie as you find the flaws in someone and spin it. This is very much a movie about spinning something to make your candidate look like the best person. I thought the acting was done okay. Everybody was kind of one-dimensional.
Very.
I think they had a very interesting message, and I would like to have seen more of that because some of this rings true. It's in our news, it's in our politics all the time. But they made it quirky. They made it kind of cheesy. They kind of made it cornball. And so the message was lost in the middle of all this. And I said the acting was okay, even though they were one-dimensional. The person who played Castillo, the president...
Joaquim de la Meda.
Yes, his accent changed.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be in Bolivia, and the Spanish-speaking. I did a little research on this actor. He's Portuguese. He came out sounding Australian.
He plays Russian a lot, too.
And it sounded Australian at sometimes, and I was just like, whoa. Couldn't they find someone who was Spanish-speaking that could nail this accent? You didn't really need a good actor for his role. Matter of fact, this character was portrayed as someone who could not connect with people except for one scene. So you could have gotten a bad actor who could have nailed the accent.
Here's my thing, is it felt like they kind of had a direction they were going. But there was so many things, like they added these weird foibles to Sandra Bullock's character where she's always snacking on chips. Like, what's that for? What are we doing that for? They made a point of hitting that point over and over again. And then, like, roughly halfway through the movie, the characters all suddenly changed. Some of them became really stupid for some reason. Like one of her coworkers on the team suddenly was like, what are we doing? How does that work? And, she's having to spell everything out to this guy who had been quick-witted in the beginning of the movie. I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. There was a scene in a dance club at one point that felt like it was just from a whole different movie.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden, like, what are we doing here now? Like,
And it ended up with as like a rambunctious romp throughout the
yeah,
hotel, and it's like,
what is
"Whoa."
going on? This is not the movie, you guys. It felt like they stylistically changed throughout the movie a couple of different times, like chink, and then turn it to a different movie. We're gonna and it tried to humanize Sandra Bullock's character at one point, but it just didn't work.
When it got to that party scene, I was getting the message that Sandra Bullock was going to get the votes one party at a time.
It felt, I don't know. It felt like me, like it was. Sandra Bullock felt like she was trying really hard to get another Oscar.
Yeah.
Is what it felt like to me. And it felt like there was just a stench over it of her just being like, I'm going to get another one out of this. And like, no, this movie's falling apart. There was so much hinted at backstory and weird tension between her and Billy Bob.
Oh, yeah.
Their chemistry was way off for me. Their chemistry just didn't make any sense to me.
And that was supposed to be. They weren't supposed to have a chemistry because whatever they had was way in the past.
But it just felt like these two were just, I mean, like, they said the lines that they were supposed to say, but it felt like these two had never really met before. And it's like, well, these guys have a long history.
And I saw that.
Yeah, and it felt like the dialogue was written by quotables. I mean, like, it was just like punchlines.
It felt like to me it was Billy Bob just trying to be pleasant and charisma enough to just kind of jab without going, hey, I'm jabbing at you. And Sandra Bullock going, yeah, you're jabbing me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just felt like, wait, you guys have been just fighting each other for years, and one of you has been beating the other one, and the other one has lost, and you are nemesises, and you're just like, you're supposed to not like each other.
And that was another topic of this movie. Sandra Bullock suffered from pretty much a mental breakdown because of a campaign fight with Billy Bob Thornton, and she loses all of that trauma, and it was trauma that she was feeling. She ostracized the world, and all of a sudden became a party girl, and then...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They just kept changing what the focus of the movie was throughout, and it just felt like, well, where are we going now? I don't care anymore. And it felt almost to me like we as the audience were being treated like the public in the movie was being treated. Like we got played the same way, like, well, we can make you like these characters if we just change a little bit about them. Do you like that? No? Okay. How about this? You know, it felt like we were being manipulated too. Like, no, I don't like it. I'm not a fan. And so, I mean, ultimately, what did you end up giving?
I gave it a 2.5. Again, I was conflicted. I thought it was interesting. I thought the idea was solid. It just didn't make it a home run. I could sit through this movie. I will not watch it again.
Yeah.
I give it 2.5.
I gave it 2 stars. I thought it was below average. I thought it just felt desperate and felt like a waste of good talent. And I was really unimpressed with it. So 2 stars for me for Our Brand is Crisis. Michael, we have one more movie that you hinted at earlier in the show.
I hinted, and then I totally...
I want to get at it, but what is the last movie we have on the marquee?
The last movie is Burnt. We have Bradley Cooper plays a chef. He had a prime in his life, but drugs and alcohol and his general attitude towards every human being on Earth sent him into a downward spiral where he self-inflicts punishment on himself. 1 million oysters he needs to shuck before he gets right back to the top. The premise of this movie I thought was very silly. Essentially, what I gave you was the plot.
He's a 2-star Michelin chef who's going for his 3rd.
He goes from bottom of the barrel, shucking oysters, not talking to anybody, not being anybody's friend, to automatically, like a week later, being the head chef of one of the best restaurants in London. Right. And they, throughout the whole movie, I don't know why, they kept on just punishing Paris. They just had to mention way too many times how the food used to be really good in Paris 10 years ago, but now it's so outdated. In this movie, Bradley Cooper is supposed to be this new wave, this head chef that everybody wants to be with, but he doesn't come up with any new ideas. All it is Bradley Cooper being a good actor. That's what this movie is all about. You want to see some good acting? He does a good job at playing a jerk everybody should hate, but for some reason you still find him lovable. I don't know why.
And, he's very good at that.
And the twist that they had really shouldn't have been a shock to anyone. I'm not going to mention it because it might ruin the few high points of the movie for you.
Yeah. There's so much going on in this movie, though, that just makes no sense. There's an odd device that they use. You kind of mentioned him shucking oysters. There's an odd device that they use where he has this journal that he keeps track of how many oysters he shucks. And he goes to this journal, and they focus on this journal 3 different times in the movie. Now, if you were going to go to this plot device again and again and again, you have to use it for something. And they never did. It never... Like, why are you focusing on this? Just for him to just discard it? And that didn't make any sense to me.
I got a fun fact about these oysters, because the oysters actually really bugged me. He shucked 1 million. That was his punishment. Right. 1 million oysters. That, if he could shuck 1 oyster every second and never sleep, never go to the bathroom, never eat, just 1 second of his life, incredibly fast, by the way. Yes. That would be 277 straight hours of him shucking oysters. Now, oysters can't be shucked in 1 second. The world's fastest man to shuck an oyster has got 33 a minute, which is amazingly fast. This is just a cook. He should have died shucking these oysters.
Well, he did take 5 years or something like that.
2.
2, there you go. Fair enough. Yeah, it's just weird because he's Adam Jones, the 2-star Michelin chef, which Michelin stars are incredibly hard to come by. It's the best of the best. And he's going for his 3rd Michelin star. So he gets this team together. He brings in his Ocean's 11 team of hotshot people that have worked with him in the past. And they keep hinting at this past in Paris where he screwed everybody over and destroyed everything. But he brings some of those people back into his life, and they're like, yeah, no problem. I'd love to work with you again.
The crazy part, some of his team weren't passed. Some of them was, I saw a guy who cooked really well in this gutter diner.
Makes this great Cuban sandwich.
I am going to take this guy. This guy I screwed over a long time ago. I set rats free in his restaurant.
I'm sure we'll be
called
fine.
Health Department. Oh, sure. I was running away from him. I had no idea what I did to him.
It's interesting. I mean, he demands perfection out of his people, and that's kind of, there's some uncomfortable scenes in there, especially between he and Helene, played by Sienna Miller. But there's moments, like there's this sweet moment between him and her daughter, but it's totally unearned. Because he doesn't deserve that sweet moment.
No.
It just feels like, no, it's not right.
2 minutes before they had this connection, she's like, you're the person that made my mommy cry.
You've ruined my birthday.
This is the only thing I know of you.
You made me a cake? Oh, we're best buddies now. And, I'm glad you're out here with me and not my mom who's back in the kitchen working right now.
Now, the people who made this movie, very lucky that they got Bradley Cooper, because I'm pretty sure if it was any other actor, none of these shticks, which didn't work, would have failed even more miserably.
That's what I think makes Bradley Cooper a great actor, is he plays these incredibly flawed individuals in the majority of his movies. And he plays them really well. He very rarely plays like just the charismatic hero who has no issues. Most of his movies, especially his best movies, he plays incredibly flawed individuals and makes them endearing, but you don't just love them for no reason. Like, you're like, he's dirty right there, and I like that, and I agree with you, where if it was somebody else, it could have been really bad.
So far this year, I mean, besides last year's movie, I'm talking about this year's, not only does he play flawed characters, he's playing a tremendous amount of flawed plots.
Right. With Aloha and with this one. I got incredibly hungry watching this movie.
Yeah, I did too.
It brought back a flood of memories from my restaurant days, just watching the hustle and bustle and the stress that goes into cooking. And there's a lot of continuity problems in this movie, too, that drove me nuts. Just little things like you get busted in the head, and then 30 seconds later, that cut's gone, and weird continuity problems. To me, it felt like they had a solid story in here, but they didn't know how to tell it. Felt like there was an interesting story. They didn't know how to tell it. I've actually seen, I think, a similar story told much better in the movie Chef that came out last year with Jon Favreau. A similar story about a chef who is at the top of it, falls, rebuilds himself, and it was done really well, really interesting. This, not so much. Not so much. Kind of a failure on that. And I don't know. I was hoping for more out of this with this cast and everything they had.
I like the acting. I like the sets. I thought the sets were really interesting. And yeah, it made me feel hungry. I put some feta cheese on my frozen pizza when I got home.
Right. Not to mention,
I'm a gourmet.
How many odd romantic angles did they try and jam into this movie?
Yeah.
I mean, I love that weird. Uma Thurman was in it as a cameo for no reason. Emma Thompson as a therapist for no reason, really. Alicia Vikander, who we love from Ex Machina, was a pseudo love interest for a moment. There were 2 other love interests in this movie. Like, how?
And this guy is a total jerk.
Right. And everybody's like, Oh, I just want to be with you.
Yeah, and when he
You're a
wasn't
total jerk with no time for anyone.
The 2 years where he was shucking oysters, he was gone. Before that, he was just a drug-addled jerk.
No doubt.
So how
He's
does
just-
he
people
find all
love to
these
be
love
around him.
interests?
He's a bad boy.
It's just because it's Bradley Cooper.
Ultimately, I gave it 2.5 stars. I think it's, very, very meh. That's my 2.5 score.
I felt I was being generous with 2. I gave it 2 because Bradley Cooper was good in it, and I did like the sets. They were beautiful kitchens, and made me feel like I should be in it. The story, though,
Yeah, it fell apart. But that spins us off to our Real Reviews movie throwback for this week. We went all the way back 10 years to 2005 for another movie about a restaurant. And that movie is called Waiting. Waiting is the movie starring Ryan Reynolds, Anna Faris, David Koechner, Luis Guzman, John Francis Daly, a whole host of characters and comedians and actors about a restaurant called Shenanigans and the crazy shenanigans that happen within the restaurant business. And it is, as a guy who spent 10 years working in restaurants, it is scarily close to the truth.
Yeah.
It is based on facts.
Yeah, it makes me very nice to everyone that ever waits on me when I go to a restaurant.
Yeah, this had the feel of a lot of restaurants that I worked in, where it is there's Dane Cook being crazy, and where it is a familiar atmosphere. You hang out after work, you all hang out, you get drunk, and you do whatever, and you're just a family. You travel together, and it is this horrible pack mentality of us versus them versus the customers, and then the us versus them with management. And it's that way in most restaurants, and it is hard boozing, hard smoking, and just being crazy. And Ryan Reynolds is great in this movie as this snarky Ryan Reynolds character.
We got another tie-in with for this movie with Scouts.
Yes?
Yeah,
Yes, David Koechner.
Yeah.
I love David Koechner so much.
He's awesome.
He's great as the boss. Because so many places, you have the boss who wants to be cool.
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm one of you. Let's hang out.
Unfortunately, that's not your job. It's actually
Right.
opposite of what your job is to be cool.
There are so many restaurants that I worked in that had the uncomfortable boss that just wanted to be cool and hang out with the 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
No, man. No.
No.
That's not okay.
No. When I watch this movie, I laugh because, I didn't do the restaurant business that much. But, some of these nasty little things that go on, and it's not... It's funny, but in real life it happens, and therefore it shouldn't be funny.
Exactly. That is Waiting. We kind of talked about Waiting 2005. Check it out. Remember, rewatching it, I forgot Andy Milonakis was a thing at that time.
Oh, yeah,
Remember
he had
kid?
his own show.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
The Andy Milonakis show. But let's take a look at what is coming out. There are a few movies coming out the weekend of November 13th. First up, coming soon, we have The 33, which is the movie about the Chilean mining disaster that happened a few years ago.
Yeah.
Really, I read the book, and it's crazy interesting, and I'm looking forward to this movie. We will see.
Oh, I remember the incident.
Yeah.
It didn't seem too long ago.
Insane.
It was horrifying.
We also have Love the Coopers, the first Christmas movie of the year coming out with a whole host of actors and comedians and such, and crazy family around for the holidays type movie. Those are usually fun, even if they're terrible.
I don't know what to think about this one yet.
I'm hopeful. And the final movie we have that weekend is By the Sea, the movie written and directed by Angelina Jolie, starring Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. And I can't make heads or tails of what this movie is, but it has a creepy trailer, and it looks horribly depressing about a relationship falling apart.
I really don't think this is going to be a middle-of-the-road movie. I think it's either going to be good or it's going to be bad.
I agree. Yeah, I'm intrigued by it.
Yeah.
Just for them being in it, I'm intrigued by it.
It looks interesting from the trailer. Can't tell what it is,
But
but
they
it
won't
looks
tell you
interesting.
anything, which is good. That's fine, right? You don't have to tell me what the movie is.
Written and directed by Angelina Jolie.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. So those are the movies coming out November 13th. Next episode, we will be talking about the newest James Bond movie, Spectre, as well as the Peanuts movie.
I'm looking forward to the time where you're like, ooh, next week we're going to have Star Wars.
Yeah,
I really
it's
am.
coming. It's coming. Very soon. But before we leave you, of course, we want to thank our sponsor, Marcus Theaters, specifically the Palace here in beautiful Sun Prairie. Thank you for sponsoring the show. If you would like to find more from us, you can do so on Facebook, Real Reviews TV. You can find us on Twitter at Real Reviews TV. You can find us on YouTube, Real Reviews KSUN. You can find us all over the place.
Where
Hey,
can't
son,
you find us? We're going to have to start doing that.
We're going door to door with it, folks. Just be ready for that. Be ready to see these faces knocking on your door. Have you heard the good news? We are reviewing movies. Until next week, though, my name is Jameson.
I'm Mike Roth.
Thanks for watching.